We need someone who's strong that reassures us they're on top of intelligence, that they're doing everything they can to keep our loved ones out of harm's way. So when something comes up like this and we're hearing, not only is he denying that it's even real, he has no plan to do anything about it. Like, actions need to have consequences. You know, when my son was killed, what I needed to know, you're going to feel anguish your whole entire life, but you will feel a little better if you find out that whatever situation happened that killed your child is not going to happen again, or that there will be justice.
That Gold Star mom lost her son in Afghanistan in 2011. She's extremely upset at the way this president today is handling things after multiple reports are saying that Russians paid the Taliban to kill U.S. troops in that country. And now the Times, the paper that broke the story, reporting that investigations into the Bounties, they're focusing on whether or not 3 Marines were killed in April of 2019. They may have been murdered as part of that Russian plan. Corporal Robert Hendricks was one of those soldiers, and his parents are speaking out. Corporal Hendricks' father, he told the Times, quote, "I'm a Republican. I'm a Trump supporter. But there would be no way he didn't know about it if Russians were paying off these cowards like mafia pay off hitmen. If I found out this information was given to this administration or a previous one, the little faith I have in government will go down the drain." The corporal's mother saying she's living a nightmare, and the parties who are responsible should be held accountable if that's even possible. My next guest, he served a combat tour in Iraq in 2004. Now he's dedicated his life since to advocating for fellow veterans. Paul Rieckhoff, a founder of Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans of America. He's also president and editor-in-chief of Righteous Media. And Paul, I want to play a soundbite from Congressman Moulton. Now, Moulton served, like you, combat duty in Iraq as well. He was very strong in where he thinks accountability lies in the degree of this potential offense. I want you to take a listen and tell me if you think he went too far.
You said today that the way President Trump has handled this entire controversy is, quote, treasonous. Obviously, treason is one of the worst crimes anyone can commit against their country. How is this treasonous?
It's aiding and abetting our enemy. Russia is our enemy. The Taliban is an enemy of the United States. And what the president has done with his complicit silence, with his undebatable dereliction of duty in refusing to take action to protect our troops is absolutely aiding our enemy.
Is he right, Paul?
If it's true, he's absolutely right, Richard. I mean, the bottom line here is we need to find out who knew what when and why they didn't do something. It goes all the way to the commander-in-chief. It's been reported now that he was briefed as early as January in writing. The Secretary of Defense, Mark Esper, has continued to fail our troops over the last couple of months, continuing to side with the president on political issues rather than with our troops, to the point where he's mocked in the Pentagon. Instead of them calling him Esper, they call him Yesper, because he says yes to everything that the president says. So the National Security Advisor, the Secretary of Defense, and I would argue the president should answer to the American people immediately. If the Russians can pay people openly to kill our brothers and sisters, our men and women, 3 Marines that deployed from Long Island, New York, then we've got a serious problem, the most serious problem possible on our hands. We know the Russians are our enemy. They didn't meddle with our elections, Richard. They attacked our elections, and they do us harm every day online and in other ways to try to disrupt and dismantle the fabric of our country. So the Russians are not our friends. And if the president didn't know, why isn't he coming out strongly and condemning the action, saying he won't tolerate bounties, say there will be payback for anyone who pays off people to kill Americans? Right now, the message to the world is that it's open season on American troops. Right now, every single American troop in harm's way and around the world is now got a bounty on their head, not just from the Russians, but to anyone else who thinks that this is allowable.
I can only imagine, Paul, if I'm serving right now in uniform, and my president hasn't even said the word Russians. He hasn't said Taliban yet. We've made trades to release some of these Taliban, and he tried to put the Russians in the G7 while this has all been going on. I don't know what faith I'd have in my government right now, really, and that's not hyperbole. I can only imagine if a guy like you would put a uniform on and his country doesn't have his back. This is the worst offense of many potentially this administration is responsible for.
I think that's right. This is rock bottom, and an administration that seems to hit a new low every single week. I mean, it was only a couple months ago that the president was rattling sabers, threatening to go to war with Iran because rockets were shot onto our troops. We didn't kill anybody there, and here we've got potentially 3 Marines dead, maybe more, and he seems pretty relaxed about it. He's called it a hoax. I think we can't wait for accountability come later. I'm tired of hearing from politicians from both sides, Republicans and Democrats, saying, oh, we'll have an election. Maybe we'll have a new president in January. A lot of damage can be done just in the next couple of weeks. I don't want to wait for Congress to come back from an August vacation. I want them to demand accountability right now. And if they have to drag the president down in front of Congress in every legal and peaceful way possible, they need to do it. Because if he did know and he didn't do anything, then that is treasonous. That is traitorous. That is selling out the American men and women who serve in uniform. And there's no more outrageous act that a commander-in-chief can hold. I mean, his job is to keep our people safe. And if he's not doing it, he needs to go so we can get somebody else in there. It's really straightforward, Richard.
You know, for a long time, a lot of people were critical of some of the generals who served under this president, taking maybe the high road, to put it politely, otherwise saying being too quiet. Well, General Mattis broke his silence, and he did in a big way. I want to read in part what he said after the incident in Lafayette Park. Quote, when I joined the military some 50 years ago, I swore an oath to support and defend the Constitution. Never did I dream that troops taking that same oath would be ordered under any circumstance to violate the constitutional rights of their fellow citizens, much less to provide a bizarre photo op for the elected commander-in-chief with military leadership standing alongside. Donald Trump is the first president in my lifetime, he continues, who does not try to unite the American people, does not even pretend to try. Instead, he tries to divide us. We are witnessing the consequences of 3 years of this deliberate effort. We are witnessing the consequences of 3 years without mature leadership. He even made an analogy not longer to the Nazis and in the invasion of D-Day and what divided them and from us. To my point, where is the military? And you've stayed very close to not just returning vets, but even active members. When they look to the Oval, sure, there's always politics involved, but again, there's a chain of command. How concerned is leadership that you speak to, let alone rank and file guys, about this president, not just with the latest incident, but where he has taken us in the last 3+ years?
They're more concerned than I've ever seen them in my life. You know, in my podcast, we have a line: if you're not angry, you're not paying attention. Everyone is angry. I don't care if you're a Republican, a Democrat, or an independent. You should be angry about not just this latest incident, but the continued politicization of our military by Trump. He thinks we're a political chew toy, and he consistently uses us as photo ops, uses us as props. Look, he just brought thousands of cadets back to West Point in the middle of the pandemic for a giant photo op. They didn't need to be there. He put them at risk. He put an entire a wave of second lieutenants at risk for a giant photo op. He took money away from the Pentagon, diverted funds from the Pentagon budget down to pay for the border wall. He left our Kurdish friends flapping in the wind. And one of the most decorated generals of our time resigned in protest, General Mattis. So Mattis is long gone now. I'm glad he's finally speaking out. But instead, we've got Jesper. They call him Jesper because he does everything that Trump wants to do. And he allowed himself to be a part of that ridiculous photo op. He and the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, General Milley, were both, walking with Trump in front of that crazy situation where he's waving the Bible around. He was in uniform. We should never allow our troops to be politicized like that. And Donald Trump does it almost daily. So it's outrageous. It puts our troops in danger. And it really also divides the American public and the military. People now are worried about our military being in harm's way.
Paul, listen, we're going through a racial reckoning in this country, and no place is exempt. But the military, better than almost anywhere else, there is a single unit. And yes, obviously race is a problem, like I said, wherever we look. But we're having a conversation right now about renaming military bases. The president's threatened to withhold funding, overall funding, the Defense Department and obviously the military needs, even though it seems that military leadership seems willing to address some of the names of some of these bases for Confederate leaders, even that the time has come to rename them. It just is striking to me. People tend to think that the military is the most conservative outfit that we have, but they seem more open-minded to address some of these things than even the commander-in-chief.
Look, I'm smiling, Richard, because my 4-year-old is behind me. This is one of those live television moments.
I hear you.
But here's the real deal. You know, this is why we do this kind of work for our kids, right? Our kids are watching. Our kids are looking for a command. Yes, our kids are looking for a commander-in-chief who will be an example and who won't politicize the military and won't put us in harm's way. And unfortunately, with Donald Trump, that's what we've got consistently. And everybody thinks the name should be changed. We shouldn't name bases after traitors, after racist traitors. And that's what we've got. Those are the bases we served at. And our children are watching. That's the bottom line here. We need a commander-in-chief they can be proud of. Thank you, buddy.
Well, you know, as he's been doing that, Paul, I just now finally can see what you look like with a full head of hair back in the day here when I look at mini-me. Hey, Paul, I appreciate it, man. I know this has got many more layers still to come. You and your kid have a good 4th. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. All the best and a happy 4th of July to everybody out there. Say happy 4th of July, Ryder.
Happy 4th of July!
Way to redeem yourself, little man. Thank you. All right. Coming up next, our other big story, the COVID outbreak. The number of cases, it is exploding. Things expected to go from bad to worse as we head into the holiday weekend. ABC News Chief Medical Correspondent Dr. Jen Ashton, she'll join us with the very latest, that after the break.